Representative Weekly. Representative Reichley.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And, oh, excuse me. Good morning. Judge, do you prefer to be referred to as Chairwoman or Judge, or I just want to make sure I address you in the correct way?
At your pleasure, sir, whatever you choose.
That's all right.
You could call me Mary, whatever works.
Well, I wouldn't want to fool anybody as to how friendly we're going to be then. Thank you for...
Call me Judge, sir.
That would be fine. I'll just remember you don't have the contempt power you used to either. Thank you.
Thank heavens.
All right. Thank you to you and your fellow board members for appearing here today. It's especially appreciated that you have come before the legislature in this setting. It's unfortunate that we weren't able to gain the appearance of the board members before the policy committee when we had previous discussions about these kinds of topics, but it's good to finally have you before us. I guess my concern is focused somewhat upon the enforcement capacity of the board as it currently stands, especially in light of recent media reports that the state police intend to reduce their 24/7 coverage in the gambling facilities based upon budgetary constraints. And then really in following up to Representative Romali's question about the newest license application in terms of the background check process and the capacity of the board for that. Let's, I guess, just beginning with Representative Romali's question. I believe it's Valley View Downs, is that correct? The name of the most recent application?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And what is the exact status of that application?
It's being reviewed by licensing, and they're amassing information in order to complete their portion of the process.
And when you say they're reviewing, who's they?
The Department of Licensing, sir.
Okay. Has the Bureau of Investigations and Enforcement under the Gaming Control Board conducted any investigation of the licensee, or the license applicant, I should say?
That does not happen until licensing completes its review for completeness.
Okay. Now, with regard to the capacity of the Bureau of Investigation and Enforcement to conduct background investigations, as a judge and as the current chairperson of the board, what is your position on behalf of the board as far as the Bureau of Investigations and Enforcement capacity and the board's capacity to receive criminal investigative information?
Well, sir, I'll rely on both of my hats at this point, as a judge and also as the chairman of the gaming board, to respond to that question. I realize that there have been those who have criticized us regarding the Mount Airy decision at this point, but with respect to the process of the gaming board, and I would like to call to everyone's attention once again that the situation in Mount Airy now is such that we have continued the operation of that casino. We continue to bring in revenue. We have spared approximately 920 jobs. We've allowed the flow of payments to small businesses in that part of Pennsylvania to continue by our suspension of the applicant pending the disposition of the criminal charges. But going forward with other applications now and with how we conduct our investigation, our process has been, in my estimation, a very complete regulatory process. I think that no one would dispute that as regulators, we had in place a system which was comparable to any other regulatory investigative process in the nation. We have met, I personally met, with representatives from the Nevada Commission, from the New Jersey Division of Gaming Enforcement numerous times in the early stages of this board in terms of how to set up our system. And as comments from not only the Pennsylvania State Police Commissioner Miller and others indicate, the Gaming Board did everything that a regulator could do in its past investigations in order to ensure completeness and thoroughness. Now, what we will do going forward is to conduct similar investigations, to reach out to the state police as we have in the past, and to hopefully be able to create a continuing partnership where we will be advised on an ongoing basis as to whether or not there is a criminal investigation going on. And when we receive that information, just as we would have acted in the past, we will act in the future. And that is to defer any licensing decision pending the outcome of those criminal investigations. Now, it's my understanding of the law of CREA, which has been tossed around by everyone who has an opinion on this issue, but it's my opinion that that law does not preclude a law enforcement agency from indicating whether or not there is a criminal investigation in effect. There's argument as to whether or not it precludes the dissemination of the specifics, but it certainly does not stop law enforcement agencies from telling the regulators, we have an investigation ongoing or there's information you may want to consider later when we're finished. As I mentioned earlier, I've had numerous discussions with the Division of Gaming Enforcement people in New Jersey. We have Cyrus Petrie here, who was with that division, who can speak to you. And it is the practice of other regulators to receive information that states there is a criminal investigation so the regulators know where to tread and where not to tread. There's a very real tension that's built into the regulatory process as a result of the Fifth Amendment. And that's what we have to respect as regulators. If we know that there's a criminal investigation, we have the ability to stop and not license. And we will do that in the future, again, just as we would have done in the past had we had that type of information.
Well, taking up your point about looking at what other states have done and what happened in the past and looking forward, I guess the question arises upon the legal basis for both the Bureau of Investigation and Enforcement and the Board to receive the information you've described. What I find troubling is, based upon your statement here today, even after the license was granted to Mount Airy, on October 10th of last year, and this is from a fax that Mr. Stambaugh provided to me last Thursday, the the Department of Justice, this is a letter from James K. Welch, Supervisory Special Agent, to you, said the FBI has not, cannot, and will not provide the BIE with any investigative information. We are generally prohibited from providing investigative information to non-law enforcement agencies, and the BIE is not a law enforcement agency. Consistent with our policy, we have refused all BIE requests for information on prospective casino license applicants and employees. And what is troubling, in light of your statement this morning, is that you had that information on May 5th of '06 in a letter from, again, Agent Welch to Mr. Roger Greenback, your Deputy Director for Bureau of Investigation and Enforcement. You had that information as of February 16th of '06. And information was communicated to Mary McDaniel, Executive Director of the House Judiciary Committee. And this, again, is a letter from an M. McIntyre Sundin, Unit Chief, Access Integrity Unit, in which it is said that amending 18 PACS Section 9102 to designate the Board or BIE as criminal justice agencies within the state of Pennsylvania will not change the FBI's determination that the Board lacks authority to access NCIC information. So in light of 3 determinations that you've received, why would the legislature have confidence that you can safeguard an occurrence such as with Mount Airy from happening with the Valley View Downs? Not saying that there's anything related right now to Valley View Downs.
Madam Chairperson, this is what I want to caution you as well as the member just asked that question. I've asked Representative Harold James, who's the chairman of the Gaming Commission and the House Judiciary Committee, in my view, to get into more detail and discussion relating to overall on the gaming issue. Only because of my time situation, I have like 3-4 more members. I have other people to bring up on this dais. So this has to be the last question. And, so I'm asking you to be short in your answers to the gentleman's question so that we can move through with the rest of the agenda that I have.